Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish. I'm excited to present my amazing guest, Angela O'Brien. She is a devoted mother of two, a professional organizer, an Enneagram coach, and the host of the podcast, Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms. As the proud mother of a remarkable young adult daughter with Down syndrome, Angela is deeply committed to advocating for and supporting families like hers who are raising children with disabilities. After 18 years of sharing her daughter's journey with the world, volunteering to assist other families, and raising funds for local Down syndrome support organization, Angela has channeled her passion for home organization into a mission. She aims to guide fellow special needs moms through their clutter, enabling them to reclaim the space, freedom, and energy needed to pursue what they love. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brady. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excited to be able to visit with you. We've been visiting on just our journeys of the Down syndrome community and individuals with whom we know, mutual friends. And it's just such a special, tight-knit community. It's so fun that we have some of those connections. But excited to be able to visit with you today, Angela. I want to start with telling us a little bit about your family, and in particular, Casey Jane. We'd love to just know a little more about you guys.
Sure. So I am married to my wonderful husband. We've been married for almost 28 years, and we have two kids. We live in Dallas, Texas. And I say kids, but really they are adults now. My son is 23 and he graduated from college last year, and he's working up in Madison, Wisconsin. So he's far away from us. But learning to adult and be all the things that are required to be an adult, and doing well up there. And then my daughter, Casey Jane, is 21 and she has a diagnosis of Down syndrome, and she has been kind of the glue to our family, actually. She really has. Which was so unexpected because I had no idea what we were getting into when we learned of her diagnosis. But she definitely is the glue and the fabric of our family and keeps us all hopping. She attends a school here for people with intellectual disabilities, for students, and she gets one more year and then she has to graduate, and she's not super thrilled about that. She loves her school. She feels very confident, and it's been an amazing school. But so we're looking at next steps for that after she graduates.
Yeah, that's a very real thing. I refer to that as what's next after the school bus stops coming.
Exactly.
And, for these kids, they love it. It's part of their identity. It's their social circle. It's everything to them. And then when, the proverbial school bus stops coming, that's a pretty scary moment for child and for mom and dad.
Yes, especially mom and dad over here, where we've been talking about it, thinking about it for years. And I do feel like we are getting a plan in place, and I do feel like we're getting there. But because I do feel like more opportunities are opening up for our individuals with Down syndrome. So that's great. There is not enough demand to meet there's not enough supply to meet the demand, honestly. Our kids, as we were, our adults are living longer, healthier lives. They want to be a part of our community. So we are, I think, there are people out there, fortunately, that are trying to find answers to that and solutions. And so, so we're working on that right now.
Yeah. Last year, my wife and I went to the NDSC, and it was in Arizona. It's the first time we'd been in a number of years. Really so Nash is a junior in high school. And when we were there was all of the universities that were there that have a special program for individuals with an intellectual disability. And it was super eye-opening to us, and actually gave us a lot of inspiration and hope as to what life looks like after the school bus stops coming. And so we're deep in that. You're just a couple of years ahead of us, but we're right there with you.
Yeah. It is so great because 21 years ago when Casey was born, I just had no interaction with people with Down syndrome. I had no education. I had no understanding. I had no idea what to expect. And I think that the game has changed in 21 years. And I
Definitely.
remember them telling me when she was born, don't read anything over 5 or 10 years old because it will be outdated. And I do
Yeah,
believe that that is still the case. And
totally.
fortunately, so yeah, so I'm so glad that we have so many more opportunities for our kids.
Yeah, most definitely. The game has changed a lot over the last couple decades. So, in preparing for this podcast, you did such a great job in answering some of those questions that we had asked. So good that I actually want to read one of your answers. And I think this is going to be a really good time of discussion, something that I just value and appreciate. A lot of our guests will have a child that, they're 3, 4, 5 years into this journey, and man, they like this rising generation of parents raising children with a disability are phenomenal.
They are.
But I also love visiting with individuals who have decades of experience, like yourself, in this journey, where there's just sage advice and just sound wisdom that comes. And I gathered this very much so in this answer. So I asked you, what advice would you give someone who just received a diagnosis for a loved one? This is so good. You said, I would offer the advice I wish someone had given me, that while it may not seem like you have been given a gift with this new diagnosis, you will soon realize that you have received an invitation to experience life in a way that most people will not. This is not the end of something, but the beginning of such a beautiful, complex, eye-opening, heart-gushing journey that your brain can't even fathom right now because it's so foreign to you. Life will be exponentially sweeter, harder, more meaningful, and more sacred. Take time to grieve the loss of expectations you had for your child, and know that you will experience so many more surprises than you thought possible. And your heart will, like the Grinch's, grow 3 times its size. And so that is the best answer and the best advice I have ever seen of a message to a parent who just received diagnosis or is just beginning on this journey. And so I think that that's something we should frame and somehow be able to distribute that to hospitals and doctors. And if a mom could just read that, and a dad could just read that in those first waking hours and weeks or days and weeks, that is such good advice. So great news is it doesn't end there. So you said, I would want to know these 4 things. And I'd love for you to elaborate on these. So the first one, number 1, the people you meet because of this diagnosis might be the most amazing friends that you could ever meet. So go out there and find your community. If you can't find one, create one. That is so true. And
Yeah.
can you share more of that?
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying not to tear up after, because when you read that back to me, like, oh, I feel like that was the me of 21 years ago that wanted to hear
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I can't even imagine what our life would be like without the people in our life that we would not have met had Casey not had Down syndrome. And I'll give you 2 examples. One, when Casey was 18 months old, we had recently moved to Dallas to be closer to family, and I was at the pool with her. Don't remember where my son was, but I remember she wasn't able to walk yet. She was crawling around, and she crawled up to a chair that had a bag with some snacks in it, and she was trying to steal the snacks. And the mom came up and started talking, and we got to know each other a little bit. And she had a son about the same age. And a few months later, they were in the same preschool class. And I found out that she was pregnant. And so the following July, she had a baby with Down syndrome. And I immediately called her. I didn't know her super well still, but I immediately called her. And she's my ride or die. She is my best friend to this day. That was 20 years ago. And to this day, she and our daughters are good friends, and they are our people. They have moved 2 states. They've moved twice, to Oklahoma and to Florida. And we talk all the time. And I don't know what I would do without her. She is like family to me, and her kids are like, like my kids. And I think but all of that happened because of Casey. Casey, reached out. And another example I will give also is not just friends in the Down syndrome community or in your disability community that will understand and know and be able to relate to you, but also the helpers. My daughter had an occupational therapist for 10 years. Miss Carla, she eventually retired about 6 or 7 years ago. But during those 10 years, we did so many things with her. We didn't just meet once a week. She helped my daughter try to learn how to ride a bike. It didn't go so well, but like she was out there, helping her and me and my husband to help her learn how to ride a bike. At one of the National Down Syndrome conferences, she had gone, and my daughter saw her there and was so excited and said, "Miss Carla, will you go swimming with me?" Because the hotel pool had a slide. This amazing woman bought a swimsuit at the gift shop and got in the pool and went on the slide with my daughter. She was just one of the most special people. And for years, we lost, it wasn't that we lost touch. We just, got busy with our lives. And my daughter kept saying, "I want to talk to Miss Carla. I want to talk to Miss Carla." Well, we finally reconnected and we had brunch with her on Sunday. And my heart was so full because like she just gets it. And she was so excited to see Casey. And those kind of connections are just bone deep. They're bone deep, and they never go away. Even if you don't talk anymore, you can see each other after years, and you're right back where you are. And so
Yeah, well,
those
and
are those are
that's an
some of the
invite that
best.
I would share with our listeners, because the majority of our listeners are on their own disability journey, raising a loved one, or they have a loved one that has a disability. And so I would ask them, think back of all of the relationships that you have developed now as a result of being on this disability journey, and imagine your life without those relationships now. And as I do that, as I'm hearing those examples from you, and I'm doing that same thing for me, I just feel like hollow inside. I feel like my life is so much less meaningful without those relationships that we have been entrusted with because we were on this special journey together. And so what a cool thing. I think that's a really good piece of advice for a brand new parent on this journey. So number 2, your other kids are going to be just fine. In fact, probably better than fine. And that is a fear. That's a
Yeah. Oh yeah.
very real fear when you receive diagnosis of how will this impact my other children? And we look at that through the lens of negative. How will this negatively impact our other children? And the reality is, us now, having been on the other side for quite some time, have to chuckle a little bit about that, because you're right. They're going to be fine. In fact, they might be even a little better than just fine. And can you
Right.
tell us more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So Dan was about two and a half when Casey was born. And literally that was one of my first thoughts when we got the diagnosis was first of all, how am I going to do this with, he is the most amazing young man, but he was a terror of a toddler. I mean, I could barely keep up. He just had us going around in circles. And so we were already a little stressed when she was born. And I was like, oh, how is this going to impact him? How am I going to focus on her and focus on, I just was like, how is this going to happen? And I did worry about the long-term impact of, is she going to be a burden on him? And he's done panels, he's talked as a sibling to other groups, and he always shares that he doesn't actually know what it's like to have a typical sibling. This is all that he knows, but he wouldn't have it any other way. And at one point, I think he was maybe 11 or 12, and he was like, "Mom, when I'm older and Casey's living with me, and he had a question about that, and I was like, "Oh, time out, time out." I didn't want that to, I said, "Oh, that's not what we expect." I don't want, it's okay if that's what you want, but it's not what we expect. But these siblings, they have their own superpower in
That's right.
their emotional intelligence, their ability to navigate lots of situations and lots of people. My son in 8th grade, he went through that school. Everybody knew him, and he knew everybody, even though he's not super extroverted, but he was kind to everybody. He could relate to everyone. That ability for him to be able to do that just carried with him all through high school and college and beyond. I don't know who he would be without Casey.
That's
And
right.
I'm so grateful for that. Their sweet little relationship. He called her the other night, just FaceTimed her on Friday night while before he was going to go out with friends just to see how she was doing. And I know they miss each other so much. I mean, they do fine when they're away, but then when they see each other, she gets really emotional because she realizes how much she's missed him. But that
Yes.
those siblings, they have their own superpowers that are unbelievable. Yeah.
I truly agree with that. And so, a core belief of mine is the person we become is determined by the books we read and the people we surround ourselves with. And specifically around the people we surround ourselves with. And I tell this to my children all the time: show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And so, every day, literally every day, I see my boys that have Down syndrome playing with their siblings. And with many of them, they are best friends. And I just think, how amazing is this? That, Mason's best friend is Coop. And in fact, just Sunday, I was talking with Mace. We were having a little one on one. And I just said, tell me what's going good in your life right now. And he said, my brother. And I go, which one? He goes, Cooper. And I said, tell me about that. And he just talked about how he loves being his brother, being his friend. And Cooper brings out the best in Mason, and Mason brings out the best in Cooper as well. And so I think that there is something very divine around the relationship of siblings with their brother or sister that has a disability. And this is actually so fun to go through this exercise with you, because I do think back to my, self. I think I was 29 when I had Nash, and I think I was so worried on how that would impact Brinley, his older sister. I just chuckle at that because,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it has impacted her in all ways good. And
Right.
so pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3, I like this one a lot. This journey will ebb and flow. Things you really stress about coming won't be nearly as hard as you think they will be, but there will be other things that will catch you off guard. They might knock you down. They may even knock the wind out of you. Just know that you are capable of getting right back up. Such sound and sage advice. Tell us more about that, Angela.
I have just noticed over the years that, first of all, always, it's proven true every time I've noticed it. I'll have a bad day with my daughter for whatever reason. She's having a bad day, or we got in a disagreement. I yelled at her and I feel bad about it or whatever. And I'm just feeling frustrated. And the very next day, something will happen that will be this spark of joy that makes me realize how amazing my life is that I get to be with her. And it happens every time. I think that has always proven true. And the other thing too is that the things that my husband and I would stress about what's coming in the future, like we would have fear and anxiety over what's coming in the future, would almost always end up being not nearly the amount of time that we stressed about it. It really was not worth it. It was other things that caught us off guard. And I'll give you
Yeah.
a quick example. One was I was really worried about her going through puberty. Really worried about it, dealing with getting her period, all of those things. How is she going to manage all of this? And I don't know if it was just we got lucky but I did a lot of stuff to help prepare her and me. Like we talked about it a lot. We met with people, met with doctors, all of that. That really has not been a problem at all. She manages it really well. And we have we have a good way of managing it. It's not been an issue. Other things that have come up, I will say one of the things that has been tough is this most recent transition of 18 to 21. Like this, I think part of it has been a lot of our friends are becoming empty nesters and they're wanting to go do a lot of things that either we can't do or we have to do with Casey. And luckily our friends are amazing. And so they're like, yeah, bring your party of 3. That's my husband always says, #party of 3. That's us.
Yeah.
And that has been so great. But there are my husband and I love to hang out together, without her. And we haven't had quite as much of an opportunity to do that. That has been hard. That's been a little bit of a hard
Yeah.
mindset for me to kind of shift through. And also just this, like, applying for guardianship, applying for SSI. We have had a tough time in our situation with that. And that has created a lot of stress. I didn't anticipate all of that. I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about all of that. I think, oh, we'll apply for guardianship. It won't be a problem. Just there were a lot of things to consider and there were a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
COVID was happening during it, which didn't help.
Yeah.
That came up unexpected. And so there are going to be things that are come up that are unexpected that you're like, oh, this was a challenge. You will get through them. We're getting through them. We are doing fine, but sometimes we just have to, and I realize for some people, this is really hard. Just letting go of the fear and anxiety. You can't do that. Right. But maybe just for the next day or the next month, not worry about it. And then you can, pick it back up, give it a
Yes.
timeline.
Something that I tell myself often is things will always work out in the end. And if they haven't worked out yet, well, great news, it's not the end yet. And so
That's
keep
great.
moving forward. And
Yeah.
so that's a sound advice that I give myself on this disability journey that is kind of unique that way. Okay, this one is awesome. Number 4, your final counsel for a new parent that is actually really good counsel for a parent who's been on this journey for a while too. And that is, and finally, don't forget to be you. All of you. You are more than your child's parent, and you have a lot to offer this world. What great advice. Tell us more about that.
So Casey was born. I jumped right in. I definitely went through a period of grief. Because I didn't know anything. I thought, what is this going to be like? I had just a lot of loss of expectations, and I had to kind of start to reimagine what our new life would look like. And once I did that, I kind of jumped head in, honestly, in advocating, getting involved in the Down Syndrome Guild here in Dallas and raising money and joining boards and talking to people and volunteering at the Down Syndrome Clinic. And I've been doing all of that and I've absolutely loved it. But I went through maybe it was midlife, I don't know. But when the kids were kind of, middle high school, we had moved. And so I was not with my old community anymore. And my kids were getting a little bit more independent. And I started wondering kind of what's on the horizon. What am I going to be doing? And I really felt a loss. Like I had kind of sacrificed my own desires and my own wants just to be Casey's mom and to be Danny's mom. And I thought, I just felt this gut punch inside, like there's more to me. There's more out there for me, but I had no idea what that was. Fortunately, with just some counseling and some, honestly, you and I talked about this earlier, the Enneagram, which is a personality typing framework, that helping learn that about myself, and that I had been kind of asleep to my own wants and needs, and that I needed to wake up and start thinking about that was really, really helpful for me just in terms of my mental health. And I do believe that all of us, we don't just have one identity. We don't have to just be our kids' moms or parent or dad. We can be so much more, whether that is in the disability space or something else. Like, it's okay for us to seek out and find our purpose and help those other identities that we have flourish. Like, we can spend time on that. We don't have to just always be our child's caregiver.
I think that's so wise. And that's something that I know I mourned in the beginning was the life that I thought that Andrea and I were going to have. And for me, it was more in relation to like, someday we planned on being empty nesters and what that would look like and the life that we would live in that. And so to be able to introduce this idea that we actually will be a caregiver forever and that Nash will live with us most likely forever, or at least at a minimum have a level of dependency on us forever, was something that I struggled with a lot in the beginning and is still something that I process and I contemplate. Although I will say I really like the idea of Nash and Coop, our 2 boys with Down syndrome, living with us because they're just a riot. They're just super fun. But at the same time, there's still those things that you have to navigate as it relates to different things that maybe Andrea and I had visited and thought about in the future. But that life that we envisioned doesn't die. It can just simply take a different shape and a different form. And I think you're a great example of being able, like, and when we talked earlier, I could just see you light up as you talk about some of these endeavors that actually are not related at all to your daughter or you being a caregiver. And that just makes me feel super happy to see that. And that doesn't make you a bad person, that you really light up and enjoy these other things while you're on this disability journey. And that is such a great sound advice for families, that it doesn't have to be your only identity. You don't have to be, I don't need to be known as Nash and Cooper's dad exclusively. There are other things that Brady might like to do as well and be known for and have a passion for. So I think that's really smart advice, and also would be something that would be positive to hear as a new parent, because initially, boy, when you start navigating IEPs in school and different health challenges and everything else, it does become all consuming, but it doesn't have to be like that forever.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Especially in the beginning, I was so overwhelmed, just like thinking about, and for me, realizing I was going to have to advocate and do a lot of all this extra work
Yeah.
to just get her to, you know, get her in school, get her in with her peers, get her the basic healthcare that she needs. And that gets really overwhelming when if you want to, really start to think about all of that. But I think that does settle down. I think the first few years can be tough, but it does settle down. Then that can allow time and space. And I think also, and I've stole this from another mom, Amy and Julia Becker. I don't know if you know her, but
She's been a guest on the show.
oh, she's amazing. But just that idea of reimagining, right? Just reimagining what our life can be like and being able to kind of carve out new path, new grooves, right, in our lives
Yeah.
that maybe are parallel with being Casey Jane's mom, So
Yeah.
yeah.
Most definitely. That's wonderful. Well, as it always does, our time just goes by so fast. And today has been such a rewarding conversation and something that I will always cherish. We have other topics that I actually want to talk to you about. So I think it would be good to be able to have you come back on the show in the future. But for the time being, thank you for being an amazing guest. And I am super bummed that we're not going to be able to see you in Dallas when we come down there for NDSC this year. Go figure, right? The
I
year
know.
that it's in your hometown, that you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to attend, but that's okay. I'm positive there'll be. Yep.
2026, we'll do it.
There'll be other opportunities. I know Coop has not pitched for the Rangers yet. And so my boy's throwing out the first pitch in the MLB stadiums. And so I know we'll have another trip back to Dallas at some point in the future, but we'll be able to connect then. But Angela, thank you for your example. Keep up the great work, and appreciate you being a guest on the show today.
Thank you so much, Brady. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.